With us again this week, we have Baker Mayfield, a starting quarterback of the Carolina Panthers, leading up to a big matchup with the New York Giants this weekend. Baker, how you doing, man? Glad to have you.
Appreciate you guys. Good to see you again.
All right, here we go. We're back with another episode of the Bobbled Exchange. We got a Week 1 recap. We got overreactions. We got every single team in this league, if they won, feeling really good about themselves, thinking they're going to win the Super Bowl. We got every team that lost, panicking, assholes tightening up. We got everything rolling in between. And then we got two teams that tied that are feeling a hell of a lot better with a tie than they would have been with a loss. Drew, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Great. We got a spread here. We are at the Mission, one of my all-time favorite restaurants in Phoenix, Arizona. Get you the local food. We got Southwestern food. We got a taco spread. We got a tequila flight from the owner, his tequila. We got margaritas, guac, chips, salsa, some oranges to kind of cleanse the palate. This is more my style. We got cocktails instead of the typical white tablecloth wine.
Good change up.
Good change.
Needed change up.
Yeah.
Even the orange.
So what'd you think?
Little known fact though.
Okay.
The oranges with the tequila, a little bit of cinnamon on top.
What
New.
does that do? You
Just
don't know?
different flavor profile.
All right, perfect.
I don't know for sure. Brian recommended it.
Perfect. I love it. What'd you think of Week 1?
Emotionally, I mean, I was sitting there ups and downs of the games, and that's the beauty of Week 1. You never know what to expect. And as you said, some of these teams that are sitting there 0-1 saying, man, we were so close. But that's the NFL, right? These games that we saw this huge gap, the first, second, third quarter, all of a sudden it shrinks down. All of these games come down to who can make plays, what they can do in nut cutting time, and who can be the one that makes those plays or doesn't make the play.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a quote that every coach says, right? 75% of every game comes down to 6 points or less, right? And even when you look at a Detroit-Philly game, right? That game looked out of hand for a little while, and then they somehow always make it close. Those games always end up tightening up at the end. That's why Vegas does such a great job with the spreads, and it's always so kind of close one way or another.
And the under sucks.
The under sucks.
As I lost.
Here's the issue that you have going into these things, right? It's Week 1, so offenses are going to be behind. It's always a rite of passage Week 1 that offenses are going to be behind. Defenses, it's more instinctual. They're the ones that are just running the ball, trying to make plays. Yes, it gets a little sloppy at times because you're missing tackles. You're maybe fundamentally not 100% in Week 1.
Right?
But this week is going to be where it all comes together, I think. This is where you see the biggest improvements from Week 1 to Week 2 every year because we get live film, especially the guys that didn't play at all in the preseason. Now you got live film to coach on, hit the fundamentals, and they're going to be sharp on the fundamentals all week in practice. And it's going to be interesting to see where Week 2 goes.
For sure. It's all speculation. Everything is speculation leading up to Week 1, right? And then when you get that, you start putting that team together. Your identity is formed of who you are, who you want to be, and that big jump does happen from Week 1 to Week 2 because now you're coaching off of that. These guys are working together. Okay, was this a successful run? Is this something we want to continue to implement? Okay, where can we get play actions and derive everything that we need to do from there to make this as good as it can be? And then, again, there's that caveat of, yes, offenses are typically behind, but there's a few offenses that were already firing at full cylinder.
Yeah, and I think we talked about this, right? I think the teams that played their guys in the preseason looked a little sharper. I don't know if there's any correlation to that. I'm sure there is.
Gotta be.
There's got to be
100%.
some correlation. And every coach is going to look at that, and then there's going to be some tinkering next year on how they approach that. But the guys that rested, Joey Burrow looked really rusty. He did not look like he looked like a shell of himself from last year. Jameis Winston, was it his knee? Was it, rust? I don't know what it was, but he had a rough first half. Ended up putting together a solid game with a great comeback. There were a lot of teams that looked rusty on offense, whether it be just the quarterback, whether it be fundamentally up front, whether it be missing protections, communication. Special teams looked rusty, a lot of missed kicks, probably more missed kicks than we've seen in a long time. Those are a lot of things that I saw from Week 1.
But all those kinks will get worked out, right? The people that are sitting there, and it's easier to make adjustments when you're 1-0. You feel better about making those adjustments because you can still learn through winning. The good teams, they learn through winning. And the good teams that continue to have the arrow keep pointing up, they're the ones that are going to be playing good football come December. But the teams that are going to be kicking themselves are the ones that let one slip away week 1 because it's going to be a next race when you really start looking at some of these divisions. And for the Cincinnati Bengals to go in there and lose this game, they lost it, unfortunately. And unfortunate circumstances, you lose a long snapper of all things, right? But that's a third dimension that a lot of people don't talk about until it comes back to bite you in the ass.
It is so important. It's the one position where you really never carry a backup for.
You never think about it.
You never think about it. They're always on the practice squad, and it's always an afterthought. But when a kicker, a punter, or a long snapper goes down in the game, usually it's a fucking disaster. It's usually a disaster, and we saw that firsthand in Cincinnati. Kansas City had some issues going on where they got Justin Reed kicking, and fortunately for them, like he ended up making some kicks and putting some good things together on tape. But it's one of those things where, again, like you said, like you don't hit it until it really happens to you in a game. And then the interesting thing was, the big thing that we need to hit on is the teams that let teams hang around. Cincinnati let Pittsburgh hang around, right? Titans let the Giants hang around. Chicago hung around. San Francisco could have put that game away. That should have been their bread and butter. Run game in a pig slop field. They should have just hammered the run game. But Chicago did a nice job of making Trey Lance be a quarterback, take away the run game a little bit, and force him to make throws on second and third down to win the game. And he couldn't do it. In my opinion, this is my early season, maybe overreaction. He is not the fucking guy.
The problem is they've got another guy sitting right there that a lot of people are saying, we won a lot of games with Jimmy G right here, right? That is the most important position to have continuity at and consistency at. And there's a lot that remains to be seen right now with Trey Lance. Now, they can stick with him. They can grow with him. They lose their starting running back right away, though, and he was having a nice day on the ground to start. They have plug and play at running back, if you will. But at the same time, right, we always look at 2 or 3 plays that will tip the scales in momentum and allow a team to ride that wave to victory. And you talked about it a little bit before we came on the show today, or alluded to it as well. Eddie Jackson's interception that really put the nail in the coffin there. What are some other ones that we saw that you kind of said, okay, as soon as that happened, you knew that team was going to win the game?
Well, I think the Jalen Waddle touchdown, I think that was a huge play yesterday. And you saw what Tyreek Hill's quote was. I mean, he said, we need a wheelbarrow to carry around Mike McDaniel's nuts, right? Like, at the end of the day, that is a huge – 4th and 7 is no fucking easy.
No.
It's no easy get. Like, that's – your odds are against you at that point, and it goes for a touchdown on a nice play. Nice throw by Tua. Tua looked sharp, much sharper than I thought. I will say this. That offensive line looks much improved. Terron Armstead played out of his mind. Connor Williams, big pickup from Dallas. I think that offensive line looked much improved. Tua looked comfortable in the pocket. He never really felt pressure per se, but I think that was a huge play in yesterday's game. I think it was a tighter game than probably it should have been at that point, but that kind of opened it up and gave Miami the confidence to move forward.
Well, if you can nip something in the butt, right? If you're able to get a turnover, if you're able to get a sack or do something like that, it was 20-7, right? At that point, all of a sudden, New England's driving. They have a chance to kind of put some points on the board. Turnover, right? Yeah. All of these things that we see, even the New York Giants go out and they grab a victory. They go for it. They're aggressive, getting a 2-point and saying, you know what, we've got to win this game in the balance while we can. We're going to go here on the road, week 1, and steal a game against a very good football team that, again, had to deal with injuries. You know, you lose a Pro Bowl pass rusher. You're trying to figure out their identity as they lost 2 marquee wide receivers. There was ebbs and flow in every single one of these games, and the teams that went out and seized that momentum, they're the ones that are sitting there saying, we're 1-0 right now for a reason.
It's about going out and winning the game. It's not about holding on for dear life and hoping to win the game.
And to pile on that, it's about the leadership of the men that are in that locker room or the head coach of saying, you know what, we're going to go take this by the horns and we're going to go win a football game. And we saw that with Brian Daboll. We saw that with Mike McDaniel. And the people that just kind of sat back and said, you know what, we'll see how this plays out.
Ended up fucking losing.
Oh, they got
or tied.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, those were 2 instances we saw. And, you know, it's so interesting. As a player in the locker room, when your coach makes that call to go for 2 and win the game, if you're a New York Giants player, you're like, man, I love this guy. This guy, he ain't sitting back. He's putting all the fucking confidence in us to go out and seize this victory. And that's what they did. And now the players made him look good. So now he has confidence in them. It's a mutual relationship.
For sure. And again, that just breeds success. When you're changing the culture of a team that's been in flux for a while, it's had a lot of moving pieces, that doesn't really have any consistency or continuity, you need somebody that's going to be a steadying force. And it also helps to have a healthy Saquon Barkley back.
No question about that. Special teams played a huge part in this weekend. Huge part. We had missed kicks all over the place. You had a missed kick in regulation by Houston. You had a missed kick in overtime by Indianapolis, causing the first tie of the season. You have the situation in Cincinnati where the long snapper goes down, and the operation's a tick slow. Fitzpatrick gets the block, which, by the way, he had a fucking monster game. Monster game.
Yeah.
You got issues kind of all over. Tennessee had a chance to win it.
Cleveland won it.
Cleveland wins it, right? I mean, so you had special teams blueprint all over this weekend. Will it get better from here? Was it just rust? Was it early preseason? Maybe didn't get enough reps, enough looks in games? Trying to get looks at maybe second kickers on the roster, and now the guy has to go in. And is it going to get better, or is it where are we at?
Let's ask Pat McAfee that question. He knows better than us, because I sit there, right, and that's a dimension that you feel good about some of these guys going out there and winning games, but even some of the best. I mean, it is a game of inches truly with those guys as well. Chris Boswell hits the upright, right? Like, how often does that happen? Now he gets a chance to come out and redeem himself, which is a huge win for the Pittsburgh Steelers to be able to go on the road and do that, to answer that bell. A high draft pick, one of the highest draft picks I want to say since 2016. The Browns go out and invest in Cade York, comes through huge for them, just steps up there and knocks down a 58-yard field goal. Phenomenal job by him. So again, when you have a good kicker, you feel good about him going out there. It makes all the difference in the world from a 2-minute perspective, from a quarterback of saying, okay, where's the yard line I need to get to? What hash do you want to be on? All of these things. And even the best, I mean, you look at a guy in Cincinnati last year that carried them through to the playoffs. When the operation's a little bit off, when it's a changeup and it's not a fastball, all of those things matter when the snap's coming back, of making sure that all three of those things in sequence work perfectly. And when they're not, it's an obliteration.
Yeah, no doubt.
Like I just did there.
So this is a great topic for you to touch on and speak on. We saw a lot of offensive coordinators putting their trust in running their quarterback this week, which maybe more than we've seen in a long time. There's a reason that they don't do it. First of all, you're investing a shit ton of money in all of these dudes. They're the franchise. You can't afford to have them take a hit. These guys are too big, too strong, too fast, hit too hard at this level to have a full tilt running quarterback. But you saw Ken Dorsey late in the game running quarterback power with Josh Allen, your franchise, maybe the best player in the NFL at this point, right? You see Lamar Jackson doing it. You see Daniel Jones doing it a little bit. You see different guys across the league. Jalen Hurts, right? I mean, he made a ton of plays with his legs yesterday. How important is that to get that under wraps and have these conversations with these guys and slow that roll down? Because inevitably, you take the wrong hit, season's over. For the team, not just the quarterback, for the team.
Yeah, I mean, those guys get injured, especially the marquee players in this league. It is going to have a trickle-down effect that is too hard to overcome. And 8 quarterbacks had at least 6 rushers or more in this week. That's a quarter of the league. That's a bad trend for quarterbacks. You don't survive in this league. I remember when I first got to Indianapolis and Bruce Arians told me, he said, hey, see those guys behind you? We pay them to run the football. You are to throw the football, right? They are running backs. You are a quarterback, right? You don't have a long career in this league being able to do that. And unfortunately, guys that we even played with, like Andrew Luck, that had the ability to do that, you are going to get hit enough by standing in that pocket. You don't want to add risk by going on and adding these attempts. I mean, Jalen Hurts had 17 rush attempts. Trey Lance, 13 rush attempts.
Jalen Hurts had 90 yards rushing.
You can't do that for 17 weeks and expect to go out there and continue to play at a high level. Josh Allen, 10 rush attempts. I mean, these are guys that, yes, they're mobile, and you want to be able to utilize that. Joe Burrow had 6 rush attempts on top of getting sacked already. So these guys are putting themselves in harm's way when it's not needed and it's not sustainable. It just isn't. It's a bad trend. It's a crutch for these play callers, though. You third down and short, second short, you're trying to get a first down. A first down is not worth what it could mean to your team to lose one of these marquee guys. And these guys are playing with fire right now. These play callers, and again, there's a multitude of these guys that are doing it because, again, it adds a different facet to the offense. Somebody's got to defend against it. You got to be able to do this. But those numbers are way too high to be able to have some of these guys feel good about doing that week in and week out.
I couldn't agree more. One team that did a nice job of running a quarterback, but not their starting quarterback, was the New Orleans Saints. Taysom Hill went in there. Again, he's your backup.
Yeah.
But he's also doing a million other things. He's playing the H. He's playing that wing tight end. He's coming in and giving you a few reps at wildcat quarterback. He's doing some different things. His runs were incredible. And by design, you have to know they're coming, but there's nothing you can do to fucking stop it. You have an extra guy on the front side of the play. Everybody's accounted for. That safety or that corner who's typically unblocked on these runs that they're running with them, now you have the back, right? And then the backside usually gets tangled up in the mess trying to get over the top with if you get good down blocks because you got angles everywhere. They're always doing it with some type of power or some type of, wide zone, whatever it is, and somebody always gets lost on the backside who you maybe not accounting for, but the running back ends up picking that unaccounted for guy on the front side, and you add a different element. And New Orleans did a fantastic job with that yesterday.
And you know damn well they've got some variations off of that for pass plays because he can throw, he can do stuff. And like you said, they're trying to get horizontal gaps. They're trying to get space there and let him stick his foot in the ground, make one read and go, and make a guy miss. I mean, he is a large back carrying the football. It's not easy and a given that a corner or a safety is going to bring him down in space. And it's old school, almost 9-on-7 inside run type of blocking schemes that they're sitting there saying, okay, we know we can do this. It's just a wrinkle and an added dimension. Somebody else is going to have to dictate and have a whole entire period, this week. If you're in Tampa, how are we going to stop Taysom Hill to not let him go off for over 50 yards against us?
And what is coming off that? I think in week one in the NFL, you see it all the time. You've seen it, I've seen it, we've all been a part of it, where you're literally, it's a big setup game, right? It's a game of chess. Like, everything is going to come off of something, right? So they're going to set something up. Okay, cool, we got this formation. Now we start to give some tendencies, and then we get something coming back off of it, right? And so you're going to see a lot of that really moving forward. Any specific teams that you're panicking over right now after week one? You panicking versus on any of them?
The Patriots have a lot of cause for concern.
Which is mind-blowing, right? With that.
It's not, though. It's not. I think, you know what? What makes good coaching is good players.
Sure.
They don't have good players now. They don't have the ability to overcome a lot of things that they used to be able to. And you add in the new play callers that are there. It's going to be an uphill battle for them. Mac Jones had to go get x-rays on his back. His back's messed up week one. You're looking at Brian Hoyer coming in. Doesn't bode for a lot of confidence for this entire team based off of what they did offensively. And you're talking about Matt Patricia. You're talking about Joe Judge being the play callers. How are they going to pull themselves out of the situation they're in right now? Because it doesn't get any easier. It's not like they have the luxury of going and just saying, okay, well, we've got ability to show up because we're the New England Patriots and we're going to go win a football game. Defensively, they didn't look good. Yes, Tua looked good. And the playmakers they had, and there's a lot of excitement. But that's going to be a tough division for them. And we talked about it earlier on
Buffalo's the king. We know that. They're the king right now.
The Jets are going to beat them, right? I mean, they could be – when's the last time Bill Belichick finished last in that division? That's a great stat I would like to know because it's a very reasonable – yeah. I mean,
that Jets defense got a lot better. A lot better. They looked – I mean, I watched that game yesterday. I thought they looked pretty solid against a team that usually shows up on week one with a well-coached, well-prepared team, and Baltimore struggled a little bit in that game. My team that I have a little bit of worry about, I think, is San Fran. And I think anybody that knows me knows how big of a fan I am of what they've done since Kyle Shanahan has been there. I love their offense. I love what they do up front. I love kind of just how they have an identity and they stick to it. And they've always had Jimmy, who has given them the opportunity to be good enough at quarterback where they can mix the pass in off of everything they do. I don't know that Trey Lance can do that. And teams are going to follow what Chicago did. They're going to follow the blueprint of, hey, let's shut this fucking run down no matter what.
Yeah.
No matter what. We have to stop this run to see if he can beat us. And that is what teams are going to do. The other one that I am very worried about moving forward, who I think a lot of teams had high expectations for, is the Dallas Cowboys. They lose Dak Prescott in week 1. They're going to roll with Cooper Rush. Do they make a move at quarterback? I don't know. We will find out, which will lead us into our backup plan. And it starts with the one and only Dak Prescott. Cooper Rush moving in at quarterback. Can he win you games?
No, not consistently. I mean, here's the thing, right? Shame on the Dallas Cowboys for not having a backup place, or shame on the Dallas Cowboys for not having a backup plan in place initially, right? Dak got hurt a couple of years ago, and it was the same thing. They were shuffling guys in and out, trying to juggle guys. You have to have a quarterback that you feel good, especially when you consider yourself the leader of the team, when you consider yourself the leader of that division with the possibility to go out and win a division. When Cooper Rush, who was cut and then re-signed and brought back, and all, there's no continuity there. He doesn't vote confidence when he steps foot in the huddle or for a franchise to feel good about. So shame on the Dallas Cowboys for not being in a better position to go out there and win. And win now. What are they going to do? They're going to be scrambling to try and find somebody. Are they going to get somebody off the street like Cam Newton? Hasn't been in a training camp, hasn't done anything. Can they make a trade? What are they going to give up at that point to try and make a trade for a guy like Tyler Huntley or somebody that had a pretty good preseason? But that also takes somebody to reciprocate that and say, okay, from the Baltimore Ravens side, we want to trade away a really good option when they've got a running quarterback who's going to be in harm's way. You never want to turn a position of strength and make it into a weakness. And all of these teams right now know how vital it is to have a quarterback. So can some of these guys move around, and what chess pieces will they have? Do they go make a move for somebody like Drew Lock that lost that quarterback position, that's young, that can make some plays that you can hopefully ride this wave out and go win, because he's going to be out for, I would imagine, 2 months? They said 6 to 8 weeks, but that seems like a pretty hard injury to be able to overcome quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I think teams are going to, they're going to know that they're going to try and rely on the run game. Listen, you look around the fucking league, and the teams that don't have superstar quarterbacks, there was a theme of the day yesterday. Trick plays, gadgets, run game, control the clock, screen game, short passes. That's your theme for guys who are not superstar quarterbacks in this league. And you hope that you have a great defense and you can kind of control the game that way and just do enough to not fuck it up and hope that the other team screws it up just enough and we walk away with wins, right? You saw that around the league with those types of quarterbacks. And so you're going to be in the same situation. Todd Bowles put on a fucking masterclass last night of facing a team that literally tried to do the exact same game plan that they did to the Buccaneers a year ago. Short passes, missed tackles turn into big plays. Run game, they ran the hell out of the ball last year with Zeke. Push the field whenever you can, but Bowles did a great job. He shut the run down. He had those guys well prepared to tackle well on the short passes, and they didn't turn into the big gains like they did a year ago. And they got great pressure on the quarterback. They attacked the new left tackle. Shaq Barrett really got pressure, a lot of it, and then did some different looks confusing, where Dak really never felt comfortable enough.
I was going to say, he never even looked comfortable before he got hurt, right?
Correct.
He never settled into that game. And it's unsettling when all you have is CeeDee Lamb, right? Amari Cooper leaves. Michael Gallup's still out, injured right now. This is a team that wants to be in 11 personnel, and they didn't look good in 11 personnel. And that's their bread and butter. That's everything Kellen Moore wants to do, how he knows how to call plays, is all of those things. Yeah. And that game could have and should have been far worse of a final score than it actually was.
Yeah. TJ Watt walks off the field, self-diagnosis. You can read his lips. I just tore my pec.
Yeah.
A huge blow to the Pittsburgh Steelers. I mean, that defense looked primed to be one of the top, if not the top, yesterday. Minka looked incredible. Cam Hayward had a monster game. They got great play opposite TJ with Highsmith, right? I mean, unbelievably talented team on defense. They just lose their stalwart, the reigning defensive player of the year. This week is big, right? Will they go out and get a veteran who was on the street? Somebody like a D Ford, somebody like Jason Pierre-Paul, somebody that maybe now you didn't want to sign a week ago. There's going to be a lot of these this week where maybe you didn't sign these vets a week ago because you didn't want to guarantee their contract for the year. But now we can get them in and kind of move them up and down and play with the roster a little bit. Will they go and get somebody? Will they play with from within and hope that now Highsmith has – I mean, he had a big game yesterday. So do we just rely on that and everybody else and plug and play? What do we do?
I think Highsmith had a big game because of who was across from him, right?
Sure.
That goes hand in hand. Yeah, you go into a week and say, okay, here's their game records. You put them up there, right? When you go into that meeting, he can't beat you, he can't beat you, he can't beat you.
Yep.
All of a sudden, when you're one of the guys that gets to play off everybody else, you can go out and have 3 sacks.
But when you're the focal point, and now we can slide to you, are you still the same player?
Are you the same player? Again, the structure of the defense has made the Pittsburgh Steelers so good. The culture of the Pittsburgh Steelers has made them so good for so long. They're going to be just fine. They're going to find a way to overcome that. You saw Cam Hayward also go out and exit with a little bit of injury, right? Guys are getting banged up. They haven't been as physical. But losing TJ Watt, you can't replace production like that. You can't replace a guy of what he means to that team and what he's been able to do to affect them. Again, he's going to be back as fast as possible, but there's nobody that's going to be able to step up and fill that because, again, when you structure a game plan around him, and you talked about it a little bit ago as far as getting the ball out fast from an offensive perspective, being able to be an empty, being able to have a screen game, do all of these things. You structure a game plan about doing that. If you don't have a pass rusher, if you don't have a guy that can just get after the quarterback, like the Arizona Cardinals don't have a premier pass rusher, guys can sit back there, they're comfortable, they're confident, and they will pick you apart in this league. They are a premium. So I know right now that the Pittsburgh Steelers are doing everything they can to find anybody with a pulse that can get after the quarterback because that's who they are and that's who they need to be.
100%. Yeah, I mean, I think that team has done such a great job defensively for years and years and years. It almost seems like they never skip a beat. They do such a good job scouting and free agency and everything of when James Harrison retires, TJ Watt comes in, right? When Brett Kiesel retires, Cam Hayward and Stephen Tuitt are waiting in the wings, right? Like, they've done such a phenomenal job. And whenever they felt like a position was a glaring weakness, they go out and make a monster trade and bring in Minka Fitzpatrick.
They address it
They go get
right
it.
away.
Which, that isn't their MO, but they know whenever they need to, and they go do it. So that's a team that you know damn well that moving forward, they are going to get the right piece to fill those shoes.
And Malik Reed just got there, right? He was with the Broncos for 2 years, undrafted free agent from Nevada. Those are big shoes to fill. Now, can they do it as a collective whole? It remains to be seen. But nobody would be surprised to see them go out and make a big move for some of these guys, especially, as you said, the contract is not guaranteed at this point. Somebody that's not struggling on offense, somebody that's firing on all cylinders, that has no rust from preseason or anything like that, was the Chargers. The Chargers looked phenomenal yesterday because of Justin Herbert, because of his ability to distribute the ball, the continuity that he has there, the leadership in Brandon Staley as a head coach, all of the playmakers around him. You lose a guy like Keenan Allen that already said, hey, there's a slim chance I'm going to be able to play this week, which stinks because he is a tremendous security blanket, a phenomenal receiver that's done so many good things over the course of his career that has helped Justin Herbert progress. But where do they go from here? What's that backup plan look like now?
Yeah, I mean, how good do you feel when you lose a guy like Keenan Allen and the backup Carter goes in and scores a touchdown? I mean, this is a guy that maybe you weren't even preparing to even think about counting
Return
on.
guy.
He's a return guy. He's been on 9 different teams. You're sitting there and you're like, man, I just hope this guy goes in and can give us something, right? He goes in and has a pretty good day, touchdown. Again, we're not privy to, did he bust any routes? Did he have any missed assignments? No idea. But you have to feel pretty good from an outsider's perspective, knowing that this guy prepared well enough to be able to go in and play and score a touchdown. Because it's preached so often, the backups in this league are almost forgotten men until counted on. And then all eyes are on them, right? And so with this guy able to go in and have, 60-something yards receiving and a touchdown, I mean, that's huge production from a guy that you weren't even wanting to count.
Weren't even counting to be in there in that position. And you look at 3 catches for 64 yards. That's over 20 yards a catch of what he's producing for a guy that's stepping in and, again, trying to fill some really big shoes. Keenan Allen even said it, though, post-game. He said, hey, to see the offense not skip a beat when I came out is really reassuring because some of those guys, especially the marquee wide receivers, they're getting pushed to get back out on the field maybe too early and putting themselves in more harm's way. We saw some injuries with some hamstrings. Some guys haven't been opening up or doing any of these things or had to make extreme cuts, play at a high level. So now it gives this team a little bit of reassurance and saying, okay, Now we know where everybody's going to be. You were able to go in and finish that game out strong, win a divisional game right off the bat against a really good football team. And again, sitting there 1-0 versus 0-1 in your division, feeling good about it, is because of guys like DeAndre Carter, of what they're able to do, that survived, as you said, for 9 different teams that can step up when his number is called and make plays. And again, it's the culture that exists within that organization right now.
For sure. Last guy on our backup plan. I always look forward to talking about these guys because he's starting running back. Is he the most important? Probably not, because here's the deal. That scheme and what they do up front, misdirection, eye candy, everything. You could put my 4-year-old daughter back there at running back, and Skylar would rush for 110 fucking yards and a touchdown because they do what they do so well. So Elijah Mitchell goes down. I don't even think twice about that out in San Fran. You could pull the guy from the practice squad, plug and play, and that scheme, that system, they're going to go misdirection, eye candy. This is going to come, this F is going to come across the formation, kick out, and boom, he's running for 40 yards, right? Do you feel like this is a loss, a big loss?
No, because we've seen it before, right? Time and time again, there's so much turnover at that position. For whatever reason, they haven't been able to keep guys healthy. I don't know why, whether it's these zone guys that they feel good about doing. Jeff Wilson Jr. will step in there. He's carried the torch before. He's been able to do all of these things. You know, does Kyle Juszczyk get some more carries? Do you get him involved more? Kyle Shanahan is one of the best play callers in this league.
Unbelievable.
My only concern is of what they're trying to do with Trey Lance now versus Jimmy Garoppolo. Before, it was a different style, different structure, and you felt good about any running back that was in there. When you're making a concerted effort, when all of your eggs are in the basket to stop the run because you want to make them one-dimensional and throw, does it truly become plug and play at that point? Are some of these younger guys more well-equipped to be able to do this? There's a lot of questions and a lot of answers. But Elijah Mitchell was having a great game up to that point. And you hate to see these type of things. But again, I don't think there's any reason to believe they can't go out and pick up right where they left off with the scheme that they have in place, being able to try and rebound after a tough loss when you go to an absolute disaster of a situation in Chicago where the rain and the field surface and everything is just playing against you. Again, there is a passing of the torch from Jimmy Garoppolo to Trey Lance, whether he liked it or not. Maybe Jimmy even gets traded, who knows, this week to Dallas, or what's going to happen. They need to figure that out quick because this is going to be a division that is up for grabs right now. We saw the Rams team that wasn't great. We saw a Cardinals team that didn't show up. We saw the Seahawks that, again, there's a lot of questions of who their starting quarterback's even going to be or what direction they're going to go, who their starting running back is going to be. So this division that we thought was a position or a division of strength to start this year might be one that's up for grabs and not a clear-cut favorite by any means.
Agree. All right, let's move on to, let's read between the lines a little bit. There's some good quotes this week. There's some good quotes. Like, I feel real good about some of these quotes. All right, so Adam Thielen said, I've never been a part of an offense that kept attacking. And it's true. Like, you would think in the NFL, everybody would attack. But very few do they. Everybody gets this lead, and they feel comfortable. They feel good about their defense, so they kind of just throttle off the gas pedal, right? We just pull back just a little bit. And by pulling back a little bit, that margin shrinks. And then that's what we've talked about. That's opening day weekend this year. We watched all these margins shrink, hang around, and then the fucking game flips at the end. And you're sitting there going home with a loss, and you're like, what the fuck just happened? He's saying that that's what happened in the past, right? Like, that's what happened. They would sit there in Minnesota, and they'd feel good about something. They'd throttle off. Aaron Rodgers would come back. They'd win the fucking game, and they lose the North, right? And so it's got to feel good when your coach just pulls them out to the deep end, and we just let them sink, right?
Is that a Dan Campbell reference right there? That's a Dan Campbell reference.
Just let them go. We just let them sink. We just keep going. Step on their throat, right? Like, that's what you want. In this game of football, we have to keep the foot down, pedal to the metal.
You have to. And what he's saying there's two big takeaways that I take from that, right? Before, he played for a defensive head coach. As you said, a defensive head coach is only worried about saying, okay, if we get a lead, we can try and do this. If we can try and find a way to win a football game. versus an offensive head coach, a young offensive head coach is saying, you know what, I just came from a culture with the Rams where all we do is just keep going and keep going. Because not only do they have to keep going because the philosophy is different from a defensive head coach versus an offensive head coach, who you are playing against is also a huge cause for concern of saying Aaron Rodgers is never out of a game. Many people know that. Anybody that knows anything about this league, that knows anything about the Green Bay Packers, and especially about Aaron Rodgers, he will not stop until it says 0-0-0 on the clock. So what do you do offensively? You keep pushing. You keep attacking. You don't give him an opportunity to do that and work himself out of a funk. Because I promise you, he starts looking up at that scoreboard and he's like, man, okay, 1 possession, 2 possessions, 3 possessions. And then you start looking at how much time left on the clock. He was defeated by that. And when you do that, when you establish that dominance, because that game was never close. It truly, one of the few games in the NFL that never got back into an arms race was that game yesterday because how good of a job they did offensively. Now, Justin Jefferson was phenomenal. He really is. And he is stepping into that Cooper Kupp role as he talked about. And he did everything you need an elite wide receiver to be able to do in that game against that team. And you look at all of what they were able to accomplish. Somebody had them with the over for the number of wins, by the way. I think you did too, though. But they looked great.
I was not a big believer. I thought when
well,
I
it's
saw
week
their
one, though.
over-under,
It's not like
I saw 9.5 or whatever it was, and I'm like, are they really gonna be that good? They're that fucking good. At least it seems.
yeah. They upgraded. They get after the quarterback, right? They made Aaron Rodgers look uncomfortable, and he was. And again, same thing happened last year, week 1 to Aaron Rodgers. And what did he go on to do? Rattle off all these wins. So never count him out. But in the moment, what they were able to accomplish, because they kept attacking, they kept putting their foot on the gas, it allowed them to go out there and get a very satisfying victory over a team that has ruled that conference for a while.
No doubt. Cliff Kingsbury, our hometown team, they get walloped at home yesterday. They get walloped. Patrick Mahomes comes in. Andy Reid. Everybody's concerned they don't have Tyreek Hill anymore. They may look better. Like, they may have better overall team than they did when they had Tyreek Hill. I mean, they got better 2, better 3 options, right? Like, who knows? But Cliff Kingsbury's sitting there at home, and basically, I mean, he's playing without J.J. Watt. He's playing out without Justin Pugh, playing without his backup to Justin Pugh, Cody Ford, who gets hurt in practice. He's, they're banged up all over the place. But he says, just practice habits, having a sense of urgency. You can't say you're going to do it on game day and then not do it in practice. That speaks volumes to me because I've played with guys that would say the same shit. They would sit there and they'd be getting bull rushed into the quarterback in practice. And coach would be like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, we got to shut this down. Your practice habits are going to carry over, right? We get in the game, man, get fucking bull rushed in the quarterback. It's like, no shit. Like, you got to practice like you're going to play. What do you take? Is he speaking specifically to one player, to 2 players, to a multitude of players? What is he saying there?
I think he's saying a lot of different things within that whole entire phrase, right? He's saying, veterans, you got to step up and take the leadership that we need. And this became a problem for him last year. They started out 10-2. They were rolling, right? They had this 1-0 mentality that you heard, and you look at the playmakers they had and what they were doing, and they were firing on all cylinders. They looked phenomenal. And then they fell off a cliff. And then it wasn't until the end of the season, even in OTAs, where you hear some of these veterans, they start talking and say, well, our practice habits weren't great, or we let things get away, or when you let things slide in the game, it will rear its ugly head in the game. Again, unless you make those corrections in practice. When you don't communicate with what's going on, when you let guys run the wrong routes, when you let guys miss hots, when you let guys miss protections, and that becomes okay, that becomes part of your culture. When it's okay, oh yeah, no, I got it. I would have picked him up, or oh yeah, no, I would have hit that blitz and I would have hit my gap correctly. Well, no, you damn sure better do it in practice. And again, there's this fine line because coaches script practice. They script for success. They want to feel all fuzzy and warm and cozy.
Oh, yeah. And then the defensive coaches script against to
it's the worst. Yeah, they want to feel good. And they've got defensive coordinators are notorious for having like single high beaters and then they're playing cover 2 to it. Where am I supposed to throw the football right now?
Right.
It doesn't match up because they just want to feel good about the game plan they have in place because they're going to outsmart everybody. That doesn't happen. So what do you want to do? You want to make practice hard. You want to make it mental gymnastics for them. So when you get to the game and when communication has to happen on the fly, or you have to communicate, okay, here's a shift, a motion adjustment, a protection adjustment, you can just go and everybody knows it. And that was one thing as a backup quarterback, I was trying to be an extension for everybody on offense.
Sure.
I was watching every route. I knew where the ball was supposed to go. I'd go up and talk to a guy if he was doing this. I'd be communicating with Harold Goodwin, the offensive line coach. We could not lose anything in translation. There's a lot getting lost in translation right now in Arizona. And Cliff is going to get it figured out. I'm sure he will. He's a fantastic play caller. Kyler's going to get it figured out. I don't even think he's necessarily talking about the offense, which is crazy. That defense, to me,
A lot of issues.
oh,
Of
man,
glaring holes right now.
there's a lot going on right now that they've got to get figured out and get figured out quick because that's a tough schedule moving forward.
No question. No question. Tyler Conklin, tight end of the Jets. He said, everybody says, same old shit in New York. It's not the same old shit. We have a good team. I tend to agree with him a little bit. This team is a lot better than the media is going to give them credit for.
You're in New York, though, so all that matters is wins and losses.
All that matters. It's the most brutal media in the world. And you have a microscope on you at all times. But I watched that game in detail yesterday. That defense looks a lot better. I spoke about it earlier. They look a lot better. The issue is, offensively, they need a quarterback. Joe Flacco was not the answer yesterday. Will he get better until Zach comes back? Who knows? But they got a great scheme. Their guys come from that San Fran scheme, and they got pieces to succeed. It's just whether or not they will or they won't. Sure, that's easy for me to fucking say, but they got to go out and do it. They can't keep saying all the right things in the media. They got to actually go fucking do it.
Well, they got to flip the switch, right?
Flip the switch.
Tyler Conklin is making this comment, right?
Yeah.
Tyler Conklin, the tight end, is making this statement. When they've got so many first-round picks at wide receiver, at running back, they've got a high. They're super high on their running back. They've got all of these guys that they're waiting to flip that switch. They haven't flipped the switch, and until you do, you are only as good as what your record says you are. They're 0-1 right now. The Robert Saleh era has not had much success with what's going on
It's
right
also
now.
bad luck. Lost guys on the line.
Which is a huge issue,
Which
right?
is
The
a
offensive
huge issue.
the offensive line has looked bad, has continued to look bad, but then what do you need to do? You've got to be able to do it. There's very few teams that sit back and say, hey, our offensive line's great. We feel really good about these guys, right?
Yeah.
As a play caller, you adapt, you adjust, you get the
Gotta
ball.
make them look good.
Yeah, you get the ball in your playmakers' hands. They have not done a good job of that. I don't care if it's Joe Flacco. I don't care if it's Zach Wilson. I don't care who it is. You can't rely on quarterbacks that don't have the ability to have an identity as an offense. And you can't just pick up San Fran's offense and say, okay, I'm going to put it over here on the East Coast, and it's going to go, and we're going to be the New York Jets now, and we're just going to go and pick up right there. You don't have that luxury. So you've got to deal with the pieces that you have in place to make it as good as possible. But right now, it is the same old shit.
Yeah, I mean, there's no question. I think then we move on to maybe my favorite quote of the weekend. Tyreek Hill, 4th and 7 play to Waddle, goes for a touchdown. He says, roll the clip.
Man, hey, man, McDaniels, he's gonna need a wheelbarrow, man, for his nuts to carry around, man, because he got a lot of cocoa on this, you know what I'm saying? So, that's he called by him.
Tyreek Hill comes out and says, we need a wheelbarrow for McDaniels balls, right? For him to make that comment, this team has seemed to fall in love with Mike McDaniels. He's hilarious in his press conferences. You don't know what the fuck he's going to say. You have no idea. And I think he knows exactly what he's doing. He's an Ivy League guy.
He's a puppet master right now.
100%. He's just pulling strings with the media and all the fans. What is this guy saying? He knows exactly what he's doing, but he keeps it loose. His players seem to love him. And, I mean, this guy has – I mean, he's got a fan in me right now. I am.
We're buying. We're both buying. We said that before this game, even though we said with some of his quotes, how he commands the room when he steps into a press conference. All of these things matter on top of being a phenomenal play caller. And maybe, just maybe, You take him away from San Fran, and San Fran's not having success anymore. Or might not. We'll see. That remains to be seen. But he is having a lot of success because everybody is kind of coming together. They're gelling. They're believing in what they're doing. Now they got to go out and back it up again. But a guy like that, when everybody looks and he's talking, they're buying what he's saying.
Oh, there's no question. There's no question. And it's going to be fun to watch this team because this is a very talented team. They have first-round picks or early second-round picks all over their defense. They got first-round picks all over their offense. Like, they made the necessary moves that they needed to on the offensive line. They have gone out and beat Bill Belichick. And maybe if they were the better team in years past, the Jedi mind trick of just playing the Patriots and playing Bill Belichick might have fucking still made them lose the game.
They beat him soundly.
Yeah.
That was not a close game.
It wasn't a close game, and they are just going to be just steamrolling with confidence, full steam ahead moving forward.
All right. Arthur Smith. Great quote here. A long quote, but at the same time, let's play that quote right now.
Write whatever y'all want. We'll get another shot at them down in New Orleans, and we can't wait. So write whatever y'all want. The same guys that you guys ranked us 45th. You buried us in May. Bury us again. We don't care. We'll get back to work. Thank you. We'll get another shot.
What Arthur is trying to say there is pretty blunt. It's right out in front of you, right? Everybody's counting them up. It's us versus the world mentality, and he doesn't care because he knows he's going to get to play them again.
The beautiful thing about that, though, Drew, is he believes in this team. They have gotten better. This team was in control of that fucking game the entire game.
Whole game.
Defensively, they got a ton better. Mariota sprinkled in with that awesome run game that they have. Cordell Patterson is a football player. I mean, the guy's an awesome football player. Now you sprinkle in Mariota and you give a little bit of a quarterback running element with it, some rollouts, some move the pocket stuff. This team has gotten better. Offensive line-wise, I thought for the better majority of that game, they dominated a very good defensive line in New Orleans. This is a guy that has full confidence in that team. Yeah, he's pissed that they walk away 0-1, but he knows damn well they very well could have, should have won that game.
I was going to say, he feels like it got away from him, right? They let a game get away that they should have won, and he knows the importance of that because you want to be able to show where you're going as a head coach. You want to be able to show, hey, we're 1-0 for a reason because of what we did this offseason. He talks about the offseason, and all this talk and all that stuff is so cheap now because you're as good as your record, right? And they're 0-1 right now. But they know that they can hang and play with a team that's very good, that's going to be in the playoffs by a lot of people's estimations, that has the ability to go out and win some football games. They had that game won. They lost it more so than the New Orleans Saints going out and winning it.
1,000%. Couldn't agree more.
Kyle Pitts looked good too, right? I mean, when you get a tight end, you draft
This
him
team's
that high.
better. There's no question about it. This team is better, way better than they were a year ago. And I do think this team is a dangerous team moving forward. Now, the shitty part about it, they're in a division with Tampa Bay. They're in a division with Carolina Panthers, who have gotten a lot better with Baker and that defense. New Orleans is going to be New Orleans until they rework the entire team. That defense is still very good. The offense is still very good. This Atlanta team, watch out. I'm telling you, they're gonna be dangerous.
They're just good enough to beat you on any given Sunday.
Any given Sunday. And with the running element at quarterback, if Mariota has a great game, they can beat you on any Sunday. All right, we're back with our weekly pick six. Last week we did okay.
You did better than me.
I went 2-1. New Orleans really fucked me. I thought really highly of that New Orleans team. I thought they were just going to go in and steamroll. But like we talked about earlier, Atlanta got a lot better, and I was wrong. Flat out fucking wrong on that. And so...
and then you picked two homer teams.
I did completely. And
but it paid off.
I think I also picked the three easiest picks of the week this week. Or so you think, because on any given Sunday, you never know what the fuck is going to happen. My first pick this week, we got a monster game. Kansas City Chiefs and the Chargers. Maybe the two best offenses in football. Maybe.
Right now, for sure.
Right now?
There's no question right now. I guess you could put the Bills in there.
We have Mahomes, who's a bona fide superstar. We have Justin Herbert, who no longer has the title of gonna be a superstar. He is a superstar.
MVP caliber player.
Caliber player. I mean, he's awesome, and they got a great team around him. These two teams, it's going to be fireworks. It's going to be electricity. 53.5 to me is low. I think there's going to be a lot of points scored in this game. I think it's a lock to hit the over. Team I just spoke about earlier, the Atlanta Falcons. Big fan of them after watching them on tape last night. I mean, I am a big fan. I like what they do offensively. I like their offensive line. I like their defensive line. I love what Dean Pease is doing on defense. They're plus 10.5 versus the Rams. I think they're going to go in there. The Rams are going to be licking their wounds, so they're going to give you their best shot. They're coming back out pissed, hot, whatever you want to call it. But I think this Falcons team is too, based on what Arthur Smith said.
Is there anything that plays into it of going from East Coast all the way West Coast?
It always does. I think it always does. I think there's a piece there. But I also think it's a hell of a lot easier to go East Coast to West Coast than West Coast to East Coast. You know,
Agreed.
I think you get out there, and 9 times out of 10, you get out there a little earlier. You get accustomed to day. Now you get a feel for, you get to spend the day out there and get some dinner. Like, I think they'll be just fine. And like I said, I think their head coach is going to have them rocking and ready to roll. My last pick, the Cincinnati Bengals. I think what we saw last week in Week 1 with Joey Burrow is an anomaly. I don't think that's the Joey Burrow you're going to see, and I think he's going to get it figured out. I think they got a lot of new pieces. They didn't do what they were so good at doing last year in Week 1 against Pittsburgh, but I also think that's a credit to Pittsburgh's defense and what they do. I think you're going to see the Joey Burrow we became very accustomed to seeing last year, and the Cincinnati Bengals are going against a team in Dallas who I don't have any fucking hope for right now, at least for the next 8 to 10 weeks until Dak's back. And so, minus 6.5, I think the Bengals beat up Dallas next week.
And now time for my picks. All right, I didn't do as well. I went 1-2. I still thought the Titans had a chance all the way until the very end. Couldn't find a way to stop them. But again, that's the beauty of betting in the NFL. And so, just happy I didn't go 0 for 3. We'll try and do better this week. I got the Vikings. I am buying the Vikings right now. I'm buying everything they're about. I'm buying the leadership. I'm buying the quarterback. I'm buying the defense. I'm buying Justin Jefferson. They're getting 1.5 on the road against the Eagles. I think the Eagles are really good. I think they are one-dimensional, though. I think that you have a guy that if you have a marquee corner that can stop everything that A.J. Brown brings to the table and make them run the football, they're going to be hard. Or if you get a lead on them, right? If they can jump out and do that, I really like the Vikings here on the road against a veteran team that can go out and win.
Easier said than done, right? I mean, I think A.J. Brown is a bona fide superstar. He started to prove that in Tennessee. He proved that in Week 1 with the Philadelphia Eagles. He had a monster game. He just muscles people. He's a big body. He does a lot of things really, really well. But the Vikings, I'm all in on them. I am all in on them. I mean, I loved what I saw. I thought they looked phenomenal against a team that's supposed to have a top 5 defense, against Aaron Rodgers, who's the best player in the NFL. And, you know, I mean, this Vikings team, I am all in on.
All right, Ravens, Dolphins over 44.5. I think these are two teams offensively that are getting used to gelling. There's some moving pieces and moving parts, new guys in different roles and different things. You're seeing Lamar Jackson disperse the ball. His contract is a huge thing that's looming over, but it doesn't matter. He's not that type of player that's worried about that. He's going to go up. He's going to continually put up points, get better. This is going to be a fun offense to watch because they have so many guys that can beat you. You take Hollywood Brown out of the mix and you add in some of these other guys, and you see Rashad Bateman stepping up. You see Duvernay catching 2 touchdown passes. They can do so many things dynamically that creates fits for defenses to stop. And we clamored over Mike McDaniel, what he has brought to this Dolphins offense and what he can do. The playmakers between Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, even Chase Edmonds and the offensive line. There's a lot of pieces in place. I think this goes over. I think these are two defenses that aren't as good as they have historically been in the past, but are still good. But I think I see this going over 44.5.
Yeah, I think 44.5 is a low number, right? I think these are two teams that are going to put points up. I think both of them have good offense. I think both of them are going to find their stride in Week 2. Again, we talked about Week 1 to Week 2. Teams see the biggest improvement, right? And I think you can teach and coach a lot better off of like a full game and a live game than you can off the preseason and practice and this, that, and the other. So there's going to be a lot of improvements made this week, and I think both of those teams are going to be moving in the right direction. We didn't even mention Mark Andrews did not even have a huge game, and that's his favorite target.
Yeah.
That's his guy. look for him to get rolling.
For sure. Play action, all that stuff. When you get the run game going, those go hand in hand with the tight end, the receptions, and being able to move the pocket, do all that stuff. Lastly, Indianapolis Colts, -4.5 at Jacksonville. They historically have gone down to Jacksonville and absolutely dominated. They've done a really good job in Jacksonville. I think this is a team that had to figure themselves out. You have a veteran quarterback that's used to calling plays a certain way, that's used to the structure of a game. A little bit different with Frank Reich, what they're trying to do. Jonathan Taylor still has a monster day on the ground, what they're doing. You get the contract behind you with Quentin Nelson. He can focus on this. Hopefully you get Shaq Leonard back that can be the stabilizing force in that defense. Jacksonville will be better this year. They're not going to be good. You saw that. I think Trevor Lawrence is good, not great. He doesn't have dynamic people around him to make him better. Having a guy like Doug Peterson lead the charge is going to be good, but it's not going to amount to wins for them, especially this week.
Yeah, I think we 100% both agree on this. I think Jacksonville will be better. They made the right moves. They grabbed a big piece in the offensive line. They grabbed Brandon Scherf. They go and get Christian Kirk. They made good moves. Trevor Lawrence will be better, especially with this staff. I mean, there's a lot of Super Bowl winners on this staff. Doug Peterson did a great job bringing winners in, trying to change that culture. They are not there yet.
No.
This Indianapolis team, I don't even know if they're there yet. This is going to be a feeling out process as well, but I do think they're going to win by more than 4.5. They have to. They have to make a move. They have to be better. They know they have to be better. Matt Ryan and Frank are going to have to figure out this relationship and what Matty does very well, and Frank will be a great job in figuring that out. And I think this team will get better and better and better as this year goes on, and as they get healthier on defense. I think it's a great pick. All right, coming to us live now from Carolina after a tough Week 1 loss. Almost had a big win against his former team. Quarterback of the Carolina Panthers, Baker Mayfield. Baker, thanks for joining us, brother.
Appreciate you guys. Good to see you again.
Good to see you too, man. As we put a bow on this past weekend, I'm sure it was a lot to digest, but at the same time, you've got 4 years of great memories in Cleveland. Is there anything as a farewell as you move on to the next week to the Cleveland fans, to the people in that organization that you just want to kind of leave as a lasting note?
I think the people within that building that really know who I am and know the ins and outs of everything that really happened throughout the 4 years while I was there. Those people know where I stand with them, and I still will have a relationship for a lifetime. There's great people, as you know, Drew, in that building, and those are relationships that I'm counting on that I did count on and that I'll still have for a long time coming. So when it comes to just the city of Cleveland, it's I truly did enjoy living there. That was Emily and I's first home. It's been hard to transition because we built friendships with not just people within the building, but outside the building as well. I mean, it's a sports town, but we had relationships with people that influenced us in other ways outside the building. And it was a good place to live. It was a good home, good first home for us, and we'll forever be grateful. But we're happier now where we're at football wise, but that's the way it works. Everything happens for a reason. So we're moving on, but the friendships, those don't go away.
Yeah. And moving on, right? How do you move on your personal process of what you go through as a quarterback of digesting the film? You've got a chance to see that now. You got a chance to learn from that. Personally, how do you move past this as quickly as possible and dive into your next opponent?
Yeah, looking at the film, just from a critical standpoint, obviously you always try and be your harshest critic. But there was a lot of unforced errors, a lot of self-inflicted wounds that we did to hurt ourselves. I mean, we had I think there was 3 third and short to third and mediums in the first half. And the first 22 plays of the game were awful. There was a missed assignment or mental error by somebody on the offense throughout that first half, and it hurt us. It hurt us. And so when you give a team that has a rushing attack like Cleveland does, it allows them to just sit back on that and just pound our defense. And it's unfortunate because I lived it from that standpoint on the other side, but then being on the opposition of Nick Chubb and those O-linemen running, it's tough to defend. So, looking back, it's don't beat ourselves. I mean, that's the most cliche thing to say, but that's the week one stuff. The teams that make the most errors are normally the ones that lose. So and it was hard to overcome at that point, but we were still in it in the end. And that's the potential that we tried to show, and that we're going to look at the film and take away from us. Okay, fix our own errors, but then in the second half, when we play our game, we can be a good team. And so just that was kind of the message. Just flush it, move on, learn from it. But there's a lot more ball left.
Sometimes there's a difference between the message and kind of what actually the coaches do moving forward in terms of action, right? So how are you, because I know whenever you lose the first week of the season, there tends to be a mode of panic, right? There tends to be coaches' assholes tightening up a little bit. There's going to be a little added emphasis in practice. So you as the leader, the franchise quarterback, right? Like, are you going to do anything different in practice this week to try and just be a second voice to the guys of like, hey, listen, like it was one game. Let's just focus on what we need to do and move forward. And how are you going to kind of approach this week?
Yeah, I think, that's something that obviously dealing with a lot of ups and downs the last 4 years. I think the biggest mistake any team can make is try and reinvent the wheel when it's just a loss. That if you look at it from a very simplistic mindset, it's like, hey, what did we actually do wrong in the game compared to what we trained to do? Look back at what we did in practice the last week. And the message throughout the building was we prepared extremely well. We were ready for that game. We just didn't go out and execute. And that's just, sometimes that happens, but that's also an early in the season thing that, okay, we got it under our belt. Let's move forward. Let's be the aggressor next time on offense. Let's be the ones attacking. Let's not wait to get down before we start pushing the tempo, before we start making our own plays and having kind of that edge on offense. So just for me, it would be just to reinforce that we don't have to do anything special besides just do our job. And it comes down to it. Just take what we're doing in practice out on the game field. It's no different.
Yeah. So speaking of that, right, you get to play against the team that was the aggressor. The New York Giants went out and they found a way to win a football game. Daniel Jones has had a lot of turnover there. He's had a lot of different people in his ear. You know exactly what that's like, right? You do. I mean, from experience, how hard is that to try and find consistency, to keep your confidence high, to be able to go out there and do that? And I mean, quite honestly, there's a huge difference between being 0-2 and 1-1 and being able to survive that.
Yeah, there's a huge difference in that, just mentality-wise, where the whole locker room is of, and that's infectious. But for him going through that, it's the number one thing is, and I took this away from you, Drew, when and which I think I always tried to do it, but when you spelled it out for me, just try and be the same person every single day, no matter what's going on. If you can be that consistent leader at the top when everybody is kind of losing their heads, and this is a little Freddyism, everybody else is losing their heads around you, if you can keep a level head. But that's
his favorite
in the most corny way. It's the truth though. When everybody like you mentioned, AQ, is when coaches might say, oh, when shit hits the fan, let's reinvent the wheel. Like, no, like what actually went wrong? Let's be the same person. Let's attack the mistakes and just get it corrected. Like, it shouldn't be that hard. And that's the thing about the NFL. It's, as you guys know, it's the teams that beat themselves are the ones that they can't figure it out. So it's just for him being the same guy, realizing what he has around him and is utilizing all those resources and his playmakers too. Because I think just obviously the coaching staff, new coaching staff, new management, ownership, or not ownership, but just management all around, they're going to give him all the weapons. I mean, those guys they've been in Buffalo. I think we're seeing what they've done in Buffalo now, what they've been building. So I think he just needs to stay the course and not try and do too much right now.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I trust me, when I was a player and then the 1 year coaching, I used to sit there. The 8 months of coaching, it used to drive me crazy whenever like you do something and just whatever. Like sometimes you just don't play well, right? Like it's not like we weren't the most physical team. Like maybe we weren't that day, but it had nothing to do with the physicality of it, right? So sometimes you're right, just keeping it simple, but just trying to keep it light and kind of veer off football a little bit. You guys have a motto and a mantra, I guess, per se, of keep pounding down there. Yeah. First of all, what does that mean to you? And second of all, like, have you embraced that being there and like since you've moved there? And then also
how does that really apply to your team this week? I mean, I think it's a pretty good motto moving forward to just like, hey, listen, like just put your fucking head down, keep pounding, and go there.
Yeah, so I didn't know what it meant until training camp. We're down at Wofford, and our long snapper JJ Jansen, who's just a great person, he's been and will be he's got 12 more games now this season to be the all-time franchise record holder for most games played. So he's been around the franchise for a while, but he was here when Sam Mills was coaching after his playing days. So Sam just got inducted in the Hall of Fame, was an undersized linebacker here for the Panthers. But Sam got diagnosed with cancer while he was coaching, didn't tell anybody, just kept going. And that was kind of his message, is no matter what, keep pounding. You keep pushing, ups and downs, you just keep pushing. And so he gave a speech to the team, and JJ got up in front of everybody at training camp this year and told not told the same speech, but just basically just paraphrased it and told us what it meant, what the phrase meant, because all of us, we really didn't know. We just knew that it was the chant throughout the stadium. We thought it was something that everybody said, but it has such a meaning behind it, that somebody that was going through so much behind the scenes, that put everybody else in the building first, that really cared about everybody doing well and really meant it. And you can't go through cancer treatment while still coaching and coming in every day and working and doing all that and putting everybody first without truly meaning it. And so that's something that once you learn the story and once you're in the building and once you realize that, the important people behind the scenes that have done those things to impact this franchise, it's a pretty significant statement that, I'll hold near to my heart now.
Yeah, that's interesting because, I mean, unless you're in Carolina, you probably haven't heard it or understood the backbone of it. So that's pretty neat for Sam Mills to be able to do that and then also go out and live it. So fill in the blank for us. The Carolina Panthers will beat the New York Jets if...
Giants.
Sorry. Edit that. Hold on, go back. All right. Fill in the blank for... Okay, here we go. Go back and fill in the blank for us. The Carolina Panthers beat the New York Giants if...
If we just be who we are. That's... To me, it's pretty simple. It's the coaching phrase, just be yourself, but just don't try and do too much. I think do the simple things, the little things right, and we'll be just fine. We're going in there. It's obviously a team that's got some renewed energy, new schemes, but we just can't beat ourselves. Fortunately, I'm familiar with their defensive coordinator, Wink Martindale, a little bit, so going to look back at how he schemed me up the last 4 years and go from there. But we just can't beat ourselves. Got to learn from last week's lessons and go from there.
Perfect, man. Well, we really appreciate you joining us. Just take a breath, be the leader you are, get back to work with the boys this week, and good luck against the Giants, brother.
Appreciate it, guys.
All right, and that's it. We're wrapping it up with another episode of the Bobbled Exchange. We had great Week 1 recaps. We hit on reactions and overreactions. We had a great interview with Baker Mayfield, and we're looking forward to seeing what Week 2 leads us into the NFL season. Cheers, brother.
Cheers. Thank you to the Mission for having us out.